Hey there! I'm Sarah A. Chrisman, the author of The Tales of Chetzemoka, and I recently let you know that my latest book has just come out. This is book 7 in The Tales of Chetzemoka. The title is Sparks Press, and you can get it on Amazon. Now, here I've got just a few of the books that went into making this book. Not all the books, just a modest sampling of all the ones that went into this one. And today I'm going to tell you some of the stories behind the stories. You're going to get to know Felix a little better, and I think you're going to like him. Felix himself is a hero on what's often called the Horatio Alger model, and his resemblance to a grown-up version of Alger's plucky young boy heroes is not a coincidence. His personal motto is "Impossible's a humbug," and he's made it his life's goal to ennoble the profession of journalism, a Herculean task, then as now. Reporters, or ink-slingers as they were called sometimes in the 19th century, had a very seedy reputation, and it was generally well-deserved. As Felix reflects in another of the Tales of Chetzemoka, A Trip and a Tumble, quote, "Far from worrying about which of the many truths in a situation was most relevant to the story, other reporters slung around whatever half-truths and outright falsehoods would suit the highest bidders' agendas, and yield the greatest profit with the smallest investment of effort." A reporter's duty to the narratives he told weighed on Felix, though. It was this responsibility to the most vital angle of any story that continually spurred him to examine all the facets of every truth. Felix gets this drive to ennoble his profession and benefit humanity from a real-life figure of the 19th century who had exactly the same goal, the American detective Allan Pinkerton, whose investigative firm is still in business today as a team of the world's foremost private eyes. Pinkerton's case studies make for fascinating reading, and he had a sense of humor that ranged from the wry to the quirky. Some of Felix's jokes were cribbed from Pinkerton's memoirs, as is the slightly hard-boiled way he's starting to view the world at the beginning of Sparks Press. Reporting was a shady business. There's a scene in Sparks Press where Sophie tries to get a job setting type for the newspaper, and Felix takes her aside to tell her that a nice young girl like her wouldn't want to work in such an immoral environment. When she points out, "Well, you work here," he shakes his head and responds, "To my everlasting shame." By this point in the Tales of Chetzemoka, Felix has been on the staff of the local newspaper for 10 years, and he's thoroughly fed up with his editor's dogged insistence that every piece be a work of hyperbolic exaggeration. If measles took 10 lives in a far-off city, the paper would report 50 dead. Barroom brawls became near murders on the newspaper page, and petty theft became grand larceny. Felix always tried to stay close to the facts of a case, but by the time his editor finished with his pieces, he often didn't recognize his own work anymore. For someone who got into journalism to ennoble the profession, it's absolutely infuriating. And the whole time Felix is bearing witness to some of the biggest events of Seattle's early history, he's asking himself how he can actually get the truth through to people, and at the same time keep making a living by his pen. After all, besides ennobling journalism, his other lifelong goal is not to starve to death. Of all the primary sources that went into writing Felix's story, the one that had the single greatest influence on Sparks Press was reporter William Salisbury's 1908 memoir, The Career of a Journalist. In this no-holds-barred exposé of yellow journalism, the author doesn't pull any punches in describing just how far the truth would be twisted, editors bought, and stories outright fabricated. This is the business that Felix confronts, and a number of his fictional tribulations were inspired by real-life incidents from Salisbury's career. To get Felix's journalistic style just right, I made use of a number of style guides from the 19th century which had been marketed to those who write for the press. A whole pile of 19th century books went into Felix's personality, and then of course there was the research into the big stories a reporter would have been covering in the Puget Sound region in 1889. 1889 was a big year in the history of the Pacific Northwest. Not only was that the year that Washington Territory achieved statehood, but a major fire burned Seattle to the ground that year. The Seattle fire is quite the story on its own, and I'll probably make another video just about that event because it's too big to go into here. When all's said and done, Felix is the white knight a reporter should be, and that I really wish more of them were. Someone who sees the tremendous power the media has to sway public opinion, and who feels his responsibility to use that power to make the world a better place, not a worse one. How he manages to pull that off in the face of a scandal-mongering editor forms the storyline of Sparks Press, and I hope you'll like it as much as you've enjoyed the rest of the Tales of Chetzemoka. Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a nice thumbs up, and remember to tell your friends about my books. Happy reading!